I had started the body of work before I was invited to Turkey. I wasn't invited to Turkey particularly for that. I was invited to Turkey to exhibit with other Nigerian artists and also to conduct a workshop in Turkey. But since I had done these works, I said, okay, let me take them and let me put it out in Turkey and let me see how people react to it. So the 3 works I had done, I took them with me, and then I noticed that we used to have a massive crowd coming every day to watch us work, the Nigerian contingent, and I don't notice this body of smaller group of people, like 5-6 people, that will come often and be looking at the work. So I asked them, "Who are you? Tell me more about yourselves." They said they were architects and architecture students. So I now realized that okay, these forms were beginning to resonate with some people, and maybe as much as a lot of people appreciated what all of us brought there, this particular group may be the ones I'm supposed to really link with, So I started talking with them, and then they said, well, they're architects too. Conversation started, and then they said, yeah, sometimes they get so busy, they know that they're also artists, like you said, but they forget that they're artists, and they become so technical in their output. And that could they watch my studio process in Nigeria? I said, fine. This is the first time that I've had people watching the process and not just the exhibition. So I said, fine. And then in the course of discussion, they said, can I also suggest some topics for them to discuss from an artist perspective? Just like you said about looking at design through the eyes of an artist, because I feel an artist is a bridge between culture and the architects who are the connection to the engineering side of things. So, and I designed some topics, and we had some sessions online as well. So that helped me look at it from a more macro, universal perspective. But something happened. One of them said, oh, he actually had to study African architecture. I think he was one of the lead architects there, said he had to study African architecture to be able to build for Africa. And I was like, we have Nigerian architects here. They're coming from Turkey to study African architecture, to build for Africa. How much more us who are here? We should be able to study our architecture and be able to, tap into, that design wisdom. So, but then when I came and I started continuing with the work, and I realized that, I got to know about the work CPDI was doing. I felt I need to go deeper. I'm not an architect. It will not be the best for me to assume that I know exactly, all that I need to know. Let me go and learn. So I sat under Nmadili and her team, and of course, they now broke it down to these indigenous forms of architecture. And like she said, it's not just Afrocentric architecture. She's talking about, they spoke about Igbo, Yoruba, within Nigeria itself, unbundle this thing. And then I now put myself in my journey. I've been in Nigeria for 44 years, and I asked myself, where have I lived, and how have these spaces influenced me now at a micro level? And that is how the body of work continues. So I had a number of works I did before, and a number of works I did after CPDI. And if you look closely, you see the difference, because the ones after are more personal, and they have to do with my journey and the lessons of design through the journey. While in the other one, there are more macro concepts, issues, general issues, and subjects to handle regarding design, also along the same topic, but not so contextualized. I hope that helps.
Yes, I think we've come a long way in Nigeria. The whole movement of cultural design, let me say Nigerian-centric architecture, was actually started back in the 40s, I'd say, 50s, by Dimas Wonko. He was the first pioneer that kind of pushed forward this ideology that we should be designing with our own cultures in mind, region, climate, aesthetics, spirituality. All of these things he incorporated in the masterpieces that he built in Ibadan, in Benin City, in Delta State. And being an artist and an architect, he really set the trend. he was way ahead of his time. Today, we are happy that that conversation is no longer just kept to him and a few people who are connoisseurs of African architecture. Now it is a conversation that we are having throughout the country in schools of architecture, in schools of design, art. And a lot of this has happened as a result of CPD Africa pushing that narrative that we should be conscious of who we are and why our ancestors designed and built the way they did, what was the value, how that helped us build our communities, and how that information can be incorporated today to solve a lot of the problems that we are facing. Affordable housing, the fact that our housing is not very easy to be maintained. Why? The buildings are hot. Why? Because of the materials that we are using now that were put upon us during the colonial era, right? So now we're trying to find solutions to problems that we started facing during the colonial era. And we're realizing that the answers are in the past. There was a reason why we use earth, clay, some people call it mud. There was a reason why we use those materials. It kept us cool. Africa is very hot. The sun cannot penetrate those thick earth walls. So there was science and technology and wisdom in the materials that they used. So now we want to know how do we come back to using that material, but in a more modern way, so that the contemporary Nigerian will appreciate those materials. The fact that using earth is available, so that makes it affordable. Talk about affordable housing. If you're busy importing so many materials from around the world, then you shouldn't be surprised if it's very hard to afford housing or to afford architecture. The fact that representing our aesthetics in the architecture has a lot of value. When people see the designs that come out of our competitions, out of our studio, they say, oh, they are so beautiful. And that's one thing that we are known for on the continent is our aesthetics, and our fashion, the way we dress, and just the flair, the vibe, the swag, as some people will say in the African American community. But how those buildings look, their beauty. So seeing the value when you juxtapose something made in glass, steel, and concrete against something designed with Yoruba pride or Igbo swag or Hausa finesse, you can't compare. And so that pride is coming back to the table now. So I think that these kinds of conversations and the fact that you're having a lot of Afrocentric architects winning international awards is letting us know in Nigeria that it's okay. That it's okay to support and be a part of a movement that preserves your own culture and identity in your built environment. So yes, things are changing now, and it's a very popular word. Afrocentric architecture that's the thing now. So we're really excited about that.
So I think the first thing I would like them to consider is that they live within spaces, and these spaces, these walls hear and see things. So much has happened within these walls that only the walls have heard and seen. So if one day we leave that house and somebody brings that house down to rubble, I feel that a lot of memories also gets wiped away with that. That's how I see it. I may be wrong. What do I mean by that? These spaces hold they have much more value. I mean, let me put it this way. For example, you grew up in a particular place, schooled, left that city, went abroad. During the end of the year, you plan to come back to your hometown. when you're coming back to your hometown, something begins to happen to you emotionally. Why do you look forward to coming back home? Why do you look forward to coming back to that house once again? Let's even assume after some time that once parents have gone, they've left us. Even then, why do you hold such memories of that space? So why is it that even after parents are gone, that the family will still want to maintain that house and look after it if they can? Because it holds memories. So why did I say that? It's much more than somewhere we just lay our head or where we work. The same thing with your school. Why are you still in touch with your alumni? Why is it that when you guys have a reunion and you go to school, go back to school, a whole flood of emotions come into your mind and memories together? By the time you sandwich the two and you're in the middle, something happens to you, have a whole gush of hormones coming afresh that makes you healthier. Why? That's what I'm saying. So there's something about these spaces that are more than just commercial ventures. That is where the problem is. So everybody just building. Let's make money. I'm not against people building. All I'm just saying is that there's much more to this. So if you're not going to design this, like Nmadili said, if 10,000 years ago they did this, if we had continued with this and not just gone the way we did, maybe these spaces would have much more value. Why would you not go and pull down the pyramids? Can you try it? Even if you're the president of Egypt, can you try it? You can't. Why? You can't say to the president you want to bring it down to rubble. It's not possible. The international community will rise up. Because it's not just for Egypt. Because of its value is, the value has spread way beyond Egypt. How much more the spaces we live in? So, that is why it's important to understand, like she said, the philosophy behind our building and the spirituality. When I say spirituality, I want us to approach it with wisdom. I'm not talking about, I'm not trying to scare people, but I want to let you know that you can't have that level of emotion fixed to a space, and don't tell me that there's no spiritual component to that. Why is it that you go to a mosque and suddenly you calm down, or you go to a church and your body slows down, and all the thing you are doing outside, you'll be gentle? Why? So these are questions. So the design, Afrocentric design, or whatever design it is, has to be a bit more intentional, not a bit more, a lot more intentional. And not only that, the preservation of these spaces. How do we look after them? How do we continue to grow them? And how do we plan to, preserve the continuity is what matters. That's why I said when you talked about urban spaces and urban cities, the city in the future is a continuum of what started 10,000 years ago. It's not something AI is going to design and give you now. That it's not it. So where we need to retrace our steps. And if Nigerian music has gone global, Nigerian fashion has gone global, Nigerian films have gone global, the visual arts have gone global, food has gone global, Nigerian architecture should also go global. Thank you.
It's important because if we don't value who we are, we can't appreciate anything. We will not take pride in anything. Nothing is sacred. Like you said, can you imagine somebody trying to pull down the pyramids? It's impossible, right? Some people have said if they were not so heavy, maybe Europe would have come and carried them. But you can't move the pyramids. So it's important to have value, to have respect for yourself. You can only do that if you appreciate who you were made as. For those who believe in God, God did not make a mistake when he made your people. So There's nothing to be ashamed about. But how do you value that, especially for those of us in Africa who have been, colonized for so long, from the whole era of slavery to now, people being told that who they are is savage or primitive, what they've done has no value. All of that should be erased, pulled down, and be replaced by somebody else's definition of humanity. So for us now, we really do have to have that awakening to remember who we were, remember who we are, so that we can move forward with pride into the future. Find solutions that solve our problems. It's very, very important. Afrocentric architecture would not have any value if it wasn't solving problems. Yes, why do we value our music, fashion, our art? Why do we? We have pride in it. Luckily for us, those are not things that we had to go to school for to learn how to appreciate. But when it comes to architecture, it has to be very intentional. So what we're doing at CPDI Africa is pushing that our curriculums be changed, that they be made Afrocentric as opposed to Eurocentric. Go to school and learn what your forefathers did when it came to designing their towns and building their buildings. Learn what they created, learn what they invented, what was the science and technology, of course the aesthetics as well. Take that information and improve upon it. If students can go to school and learn about who they are from kindergarten, grade school, university, PhD, you can imagine that we'll be graduating people who are experts in knowing who they are so that they can create something that works for them. Again, I will use Dimas Wonko's philosophy of natural synthesis. Blend contemporary with traditional and create something that is comfortable, that is beautiful, that is affordable for you, that is sacred for you. But you're not going to know that if you're going to school and you're forever looking in a different direction. You're learning about somebody else's culture, what works for them in their built environment, what works for them in their economy, and then you wonder why we have the jackpot syndrome. Everybody wants to run and go there because you're not learning about your own place and how to make your place, how to build your place as beautiful, right? So what we're doing is we're pushing those curriculums until Afrocentric architecture and planning. And I have to give a shout out to Professor David Hughes, whose word we are using, Afrocentric architecture, from his publication in 1994. Until schools are teaching our children from an African lens, then CPDI has that parallel academic platform. If you're not getting it in your classroom, there's a space you can go and learn about design and architecture and planning from your own culture's perspective. Come up with amazing masterpieces, but learn about it. One day when it's incorporated into our main school curriculums, then all of us will be learning, and it's not just architecture, it's also learning Afrocentric politics, economics, everything, medicine, including the architecture. So we are pushing for curriculum reform. We've made some progress, but that is basically what we're doing now. And then the second thing we're doing is actually building those samples, those prototypes. Our students have graduated and moved on to design and build some amazing works. And they're joining the leagues of Afrocentric designers around the world. But it starts with education. It starts with education.
Yeah, in closing, I would just say that I hope the exhibition is also an experience, that it will help us to stop, think, before we move forward again. I wish to thank Windsor for the opportunity for the exhibition, and I also remember getting everybody to write the little answers to the questions. You know, when you're there, you can go through and see the response from the different people that have come and what they say about living spaces and built environments. For me, it's about taking things personal, making your living spaces and built environments part and parcel of your personal life, and seeing how you can also be an advocate to push the same narrative. Thank you.
Okay. My closing would be for any young creative who's listening or has the opportunity to visit Windsor to experience Imal's exhibition. I would say dig deep, reflect, do some research on who you are. Who are your people? What's your culture? Go to the village, talk to your grandparents. If you are blessed and lucky and there are buildings that still reflect your heritage, quickly photograph them, ask questions, come back, sketch, draw, imagine what those spaces could look like. The Wakanda effect, right? If you had been given the opportunity to continue to evolve and grow in your own identity, if you'd never been conquered, what would your town or your city or your village look like today? Be the master, be the artist that creates that identity. Make a name for yourself by creating a language that is unique to you and your culture. If you are Idoma, become a master Idoma architect. Specialize in it, be proud. Whatever culture you come from, be proud of that. And I think that's my takeaway. Be proud and confident in who you are. Figure out yourself, project to the future, and that's it.